Hi, I'm Rick Shea, and first time I remember going to the Palomino is probably 1979 or 1980. We drove down from up in the mountains by Lake Arrowhead, where I used to live. My girlfriend, who's now my wife, and I and a couple of friends on my birthday, and we saw the Blasters, which was a great show to get introduced to the Palomino, and to the Blasters. Became a great fan of the Blasters, and even ended up working with Dave Alvin here for the last couple of years, which has been great for me. But the first time I played at the Palomino was probably a few years after that on the Sunday barbecues that they used to do, and shortly after that I started working there kind of on a regular basis every month or so with either one act or another. I worked there with George Highfill, Chris Gaffney, did a couple of shows with Hank Thompson there years ago, and many evenings of Ronnie Mack's barn dance. And my memories of the Palomino are just the tremendous history, and just the photos that line the walls of everybody that I looked up to and respected in country music, and just walking on the stage where all of those performers had been, and all of that history and all that music was just always a real thrill. And it was just a great club. Beyond that, it was a great club that was real comfortable to socialize in, to walk around in. The stage was good size, good comfortable. It was just it was well set up. It was fun to be at, and over the years it got to feel real comfortable. I could expect to see a lot of people there that I wouldn't see in other places, which was I would always look forward to, and get to hear and just catch up with people, a lot of musicians and friends and fans. I'll field some questions now.
I'll first about the barbecue, Sunday barbecue.
Yeah.
Was that Neil Young's sister ran that aspect?
I don't remember who ran the barbecues on Sunday, but they had been going for a number of years when I started to do them. And it was just a real casual thing. One band or another, sometimes a couple of bands would play. And for the price of admission, there was a whole barbecue spread back in the back. So it was a real friendly, family sort of a deal. Well, my kids always went to the Palomino, because it was family place. It was a restaurant, and kids were allowed to go. In fact, my kids went many times and behaved very badly. So it was a friendly place.
Hey, everyone, relax.
Yeah.
What was the first year you played there?
The first year? I can't really remember exactly the first year that I played, but it would have been probably 1983 or 4 when I first played.
Well, you were right. There are cookies back here.
And how you doing, Skip?
Hey, Rick. What's some of the bands remember there?
Well, the Blasters first. And then I probably saw a lot more of the local bands. I didn't go out to as many of the performances. Jerry Lee Lewis was there all of the time, Boyd Axton, people like that. But most of the people that I saw were just the people that I played with around town, and local people, Jim Lauderdale, Lucinda Williams, and people like that played there during the time that I was there.
And now Lucinda's in Nashville.
Cinda's in Nashville, Jim Lauderdale's in Nashville. A lot of people have moved to Nashville.
Was there any other place like the Palomino Club, or is there a place now?
No, there never has been a place like it, and there's Jack's Sugar Shack is certainly, done a lot to fill the void left by the Palomino, and Jack's is a great place and wonderful to the musicians. It's not quite the same in a lot of ways, but the Palomino was unique. It was besides being comfortable and having a comfortable setup and stage and everything for the musicians, there was just the tremendous history that you could see everywhere and you could feel everywhere that just, you know, it just made such an impression on you while you were there.
Magical.
It was. I mean, you could just, it was just so easy to imagine all of the nights of, and the people that came in there when I first started playing. There were many people that had, you know, been going to the Palomino for 20 and 30 years, so they were there to talk about it, to tell you, you know, who they had seen and on the nights they had spent at the Palomino. Jimmy Bryant, Speedy West playing there every night, Cliffy Stone, all of the nights of the Palomino talent night, which was sort of a thing unto itself for anybody that ever spent any time there. Talent night was just always very interesting. It attracted a real variety of performers, and you know, everything from, you know, some great local performers to you know, just sort of wildness on stage, you know.
Country, rock, all.
Just certainly towards the end, it was open to anything. I played a lot of talent nights, not at the Palomino, but I played over at Nashville West for many years, and we used to get a lot of the same crowd. And yeah, a lot of the performers would they would do everything and anything. So.
Well, was it a place where talent to be discovered, for a guy to actually get discovered, maybe be a promotion man, you know? Or...
I'm sure people did get discovered there, and I think that what was much more likely to happen and worked for me and worked for a lot of other people was you would meet other people that were working in the music business and in show business at your level and, you know, another level or two up. And so it was a great place to meet people. I personally didn't know anybody that, you know, was, you know, discovered and just picked and, you know, became a star overnight out of there. I wouldn't doubt that it probably happened a few times, but you were more likely to meet people that would be beneficial to your, you know, your career in the long run. Yeah, exactly. It was just a great place to, you know, to meet other people that were, you know, playing the music that you were interested in.
It was more of a community.
Well, it was a real center of the community. Yeah, the music community that existed, it was, you know, around Los Angeles in those days was always, to some extent or another, centered around the Palomino. Just the way another, you know, a few years before that it had been centered around the Troubadour, you know, for even during that time and after that, for country music and a lot of other forms of music, it was centered around the Palomino.
Good here. Anything else about
Anything else about Rick Shea? Where are you now, Rick?
Well, I've got a couple of albums out. The Buffalo Show was out in '95. We got a lot of great reviews locally and all around the country. Top 10 in the LA Times here, and some national magazines, and a lot of radio airplay. And the new album is called Shaky Ground. It was on the LA Weekly's top 10 for '99, and is just starting to get some notice and some reviews right now. I work a lot with a fellow named Dave Alvin, who I think you'll be interviewing in a little while, who was in the Blasters that I talked about seeing at the Palomino in 1980 or 81. But I spent a lot of time touring with Dave, and then playing a lot here locally, and working on my own recordings.
Didn't you open some big bands? Who else did you? What band did you open for?
Well, with Dave, we did about 3 or 4 weeks with Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell the year before last. Madison Square Garden and United Center, and that was a lot. That was great. Yeah, it was great to be on the show, and we've done a lot with Dave. Toured Europe and done a lot of festivals all over the country. and in Europe and Italy. So, and then I've done a few of those myself. I did the Strawberry Festival last year. We're going up to San Francisco tomorrow to do a small show, and then some more shows here locally, and hopefully another new recording here this year. So.
All right.
Well, that's enough. I hope you can.
That's great. That's great. That's enough. Oh, that's plenty. Yeah, that's great.
Well, thanks.
Next, Groovy Rednecks, take one. Okay. We're rolling.
Okay.
Howdy. How you doing? My name's Tex. I'm in the Groovy Rednecks.
And can you tell us about your experience with Palomino and when you started playing there, what years?
Well, the band started in 1991, so I think we caught the last couple of years of the Palomino anyway. We played there maybe half a dozen times or more. It was a lot of fun. Always had a good time. Usually played the Ronnie Mack barn dance. Sometimes we played Friday or Saturday nights. It was like a home away from home, and I sure do miss it.
And what were your experiences of the people you played with there and some of the stars?
Well, I don't know. We played with lots of creeps, but I saw lots of good acts there that we didn't get a chance to play with. I saw Carl Perkins the night that he brought Brian Setzer up on stage and called him the greatest rockabilly cat, and Brian said, no, Carl, you're the greatest. And saw Bo Diddley there, Jerry Lee Lewis. I saw him there a couple times. He put on a hell of a show. And I just always had a good time up at the old Palomino Club.
And so how about you recording any new music?
Yeah, we just got a new CD out. Happen to have one right here. It's called Wishful Drinking. And one of my favorite songs on there is about the Palomino. And here's us on the back of Jumbo's Clown Room. But the Palomino Club, we have the song on here. Let's see, it's track number 10. And it's a nice little love ballad about the bar and about how it was just abandoned for like 10 years and just sitting there. And nobody was doing anything about it. And it just kind of worried me a little bit, so I had to get it out. So I wrote a song about it, and I kind of like it.
So those 10 years, what happened those 10 years? There no acts coming in? Or?
No, it was just like vacant. I think I heard that squatters took it over, and like, you know, runaways and people like that were like living inside. And then just recently I've seen the place. I took some pictures of it right before this album came out when the sign was still up. But the sign's down now, and it's turned into, I think, an Italian restaurant. I think it's called La Mange.
It's I think it's a dance hall, rental hall.
Oh.
A rental hall. Banquet, rental hall.
No, I'm sure it's not the same.
Oh, no, it's totally different.
Hi. Anyway, yeah, I really miss the club.
Oh, yeah.
It was my favorite club. I didn't go to as often as I like because I tend to drink a lot. And it's in North Hollywood, and that's kind of a drive for me from Hollywood. But when I did go, I had somebody else drive, and I got drunker than a skunk and had a great time.
Everybody can get really relaxed.
Yeah, it was, you know, the tables were like rows of picnic benches type thing, and everybody was always dancing, and I just love when you saw a big name act play there. Big name to me is like the oldies guys. I love the oldies. You saw somebody like Jerry Lee, you were like right there, like 5 feet away from him while he's playing the piano, and it was just cool. And then afterwards, they'd usually just hang out. Like I talked to Carl Perkins in the back after his show, and he was the friendliest guy I ever met, and he was more than happy to, you know, take pictures, sign autographs, and genuinely interested in you, you know, as a person. And just really cool that people at the Palomino felt like that. They could get up on stage, then afterwards just mingle with the crowd. I wish I would have got a chance to warm up for some of them guys, but it is still around, so maybe at another club. But the Palomino was special.
And we couldn't afford to hear your song, Palomino Club. Say what's the name of it again?
What?
That's the name of the Palomino song?
The Palomino, that's what it's called.
Palomino.
Yeah.
Okay, we're looking for that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Long live the Palomino.
Yeah.
Earl, Electric Earl.
And just every anecdote, your story. Tell me your story.
The interesting thing about the Palomino is you never know who you're going to meet, either in the bar or behind the bar. Now, I've been going there for quite a while now, ordering Bloody Marys, and really enjoyed the drinks that this bartender made. And then later, long after the Palomino closed, I went to see a singer named Astrid Young, and she remembered me. She was the bartender, and Astrid Young, if you don't know, is Neil Young's sister. So she was working at the Palomino bartending. Anyway, I'm glad I left her a good tip.
Movies and stuff like that. It's fun. Good time to be young, single, and on the road with a rock and roll band. Late 60s. Pretty cool. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, Paul, can you tell us about your experiences with your
Palomino. You know, the first time I came to the Palomino, I think it was in the late 60s, and then I played there at a talent night in the very early 70s, like 70 or 71, and what a place, you know. I sat at the bar with Jerry Lee Lewis, you know, I saw Kershaw and Emmylou Harris, and just, you know, Linda Ronstadt, so many people there, and what a great place. I played there in talent show bands. I played there with, you know, a lot of different acts. And then when Ronnie had the barn dance there, I played there with Richard Ferreira and George Heifel and just a bunch of people. And it was always a cool hang. It was always fun. It was always a party. Palomino was a lot of fun. It's a great place. I miss it.
The people, what year did you start playing there?
Well, like I said, I think the first time I played there was 71 in a talent show, you know, one of the talent shows. And then I started playing there as a bass player after that. I didn't start playing bass until 74. So the things I did there before that were as a guitar player and singer. And then after 74, I started playing there, subbing first, and then, you know, getting gigs with different bands there. And then when Ronnie had them with you, because that was a reformed band. Lee Freeman and George Bennell were heading that band, and those were two of the original guys. And then they had a guitar player, Howard Anderson, I think, was playing with them that night. Was that the night that also that I saw them there 2 or 3 times? One night they opened for or played with the guy from Love. Arthur Lee, yeah. Was that night too?
December 88.
Yeah. But so no, I didn't play with them that night. No, but I was there.
How about some experiences with the Strawberry Alarm Clock?
Oh well, you know, printable ones. I mean, it's interesting stuff. You know, it all. I was really so young, even though that wasn't my first band. You know, I started out recording in. When I was like 15 with a band that was signed to Bob Keane and Mustang Records, like with Bobby Fuller 4. He had Bobby Fuller 4 at that time. And we did some shows with him, you know. But as far as playing with the Alarm Clock, you know, it was just great to be on the road and recording and stuff. We did TV shows, you know. We cut sides at Crystal Sound and you know, in Hollywood, some of the great studios we recorded at, and then you know, I did Beyond the Valley of the Dolls with them, which was an interesting movie.
I mean, you done a new movie recently, Break My Heart.
Yeah, well, that was a song I wrote with Mark Fawson. Mark knew that they needed songs for that movie, and that they were looking for songs that were representative of that period, which was kind of about the Brill Building, and it's loosely based on Carole King's life. And so they were looking for songs, original songs, that sounded like they might have been written in that time period. So Mark and I wrote a tune, and they liked it, and they put it in the movie. And it's on the soundtrack CD, too. That's Truth Is You Lie. Truth Is You Lie. And then the movie is Grace of My Heart. Cool movie. Had a good cast, too.
Yeah, I know. Did you go home, Miss? Everybody? Did you meet
I didn't meet everybody, but I did meet Matt Dillon and Jill Sobule, who sang the song that Mark and I wrote, and Bridget Fonda, who was on the set that day too. Yeah. A couple other people.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but Paul, you and Kathy Robinson wrote a song for the documentary on the Palomino Club. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? The song?
Yeah. What happened with that was Kathy had this idea of writing. Kathy had this idea of writing the song, a song about. She first thought about writing the song about the blackboard because she had been visiting Red Simpson and some other people up in Bakersfield, and she was hanging out with them and hearing these stories about this place called the Lucky Spot where Joe and Rose Lee Mathis used to play, and the blackboard where of course Haggard played, and just everybody in Bakersfield and everybody who came through there, and how neither of those clubs were open anymore. And excuse me just a second, I just remembered I gotta go out there and introduce Sylvia as soon as Rick is done. So if you can hear when Rick's done, let me know. But I'm sorry to go on with that story. Because I was talking about the song Blackboard in Bakersfield. So then I realized, when she came to me with the idea of writing a song about those clubs, I realized, wow, Palomino's closed too now, because it had just been closed for a couple of years at this point, a year or two. And so I said, let's do it about all these clubs. It'll be representative of a whole, era that's kind of gone. And then we started writing the song, and it was kind of a natural thing to put in some references to the people who played there, and the memories that we both had of playing there. So that was fun. I did write that.
That will be the main song for the documentary. So thanks so much.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad it worked out. Thank you.
Yeah, mic him up.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
God, hello. I'm so hard. I can't.
We'll do a quick one, bro.
Well, yeah, I'm
3 or 4
fine.
questions.
But I don't look at my jacket off. I like to do. I like my jacket.
Testing 1 2 3 4.
Dave Alvin, Dave Alvin.
1 2 3. Dave Alvin, Dave Alvin. Testing 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10.
Dave Alvin, anniversary night. Jack Shirley, right around March down. Yeah, Vicki's gonna ask.
Okay, I'm gonna ask all of that. And look at the camera. Sorry.
You got it.
Anyway, we're gonna talk about Dave Alvin and the Blasters, and you guys played Palomino.
Well, we only played the Palomino twice ever. The first time was early in our career, and it was a Sunday night, and it was like 1980 or maybe even 1979, like December of 1979 or January of 1980. And it was one of these nights where you'd have to bring in tickets, and you'd get paid off of how many tickets you brought in. And so we had all our cousins and all our friends, and everybody drove up from Riverside County and Long Beach and Orange County and East LA and everything, and we played, and it was a great gig up until the end of the night when everybody went to their cars and everybody's tires had been slashed. And that was my first memory of playing the Palomino. I tried to get in there one night in 1975, and I was working in a warehouse in Whittier, and there was an older woman there. I was about, I don't know, 19 or 20, and there was an older woman who was like 40 who I worked with, had a big crush on her, and she was a big Waylon Jennings fan, and I stood out in front of the Palomino one night when she was in there with her boyfriend trying to, I don't know, but that's the first time I went to the Palomino. But the first time I played there, everybody got their tires slashed.
Oh, wow. And how many times did you guys play there?
The Blasters, we only played there one other time when we did a benefit, sort of a benefit memorial gig for a great guitar player named Hollywood Fats after Fats passed away. And we played there then. And the best thing about that gig was a friend of ours, Hank Ballard, showed up with the Midnighters, his background singers, and we had backed up Hank Ballard a couple times in the past. So Hank just happened to be stopping by, and all the Midnighters, they just happened to be driving by, Hank said, in full tuxedo regalia. And so we got the Midnighters up, and we played with the Midnighters. We backed them up. We played our own gig, and that was the second time the Blasters ever played there, and only the other time with me in the band. On my own as a solo act, I played there a million times. Yeah, a million times. Well, I know Glenn Glenn. I'm a big fan of Glenn Glenn's records and everything, and we might have done like a barn dance. I never played guitar with Glenn Glenn. I would have loved to, because I stole a lick from one of his songs, a song called Everybody's Rockin'. I stole a lick when I did the music for a movie called Crybaby, a John Waters movie, and there was a great guitar lick, down, 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 and I stole that lick, and no, it ain't my lick. Glenn Glenn's lick. Glenn Glenn caught it immediately. He caught it immediately and busted me on it, and I had to, yeah, Glenn, it's your lick.
So you played there a lot by yourself then?
Yeah, I played there more than by myself, between barn dances and regular gigs and everything else. It was towards the end of the Palomino, towards the last couple of years, or last like 4 or 5 years, when it became a little too, undesirable for sort of mainstream country acts to play there. It became, the Palomino kind of turned into a great roots rock club where they would book anything from me to Johnny Johnson and, Albert King to Merle Haggard. Yeah. Continuity. The continuity's going to hell. Yeah.
Yeah, Merle says, okay, backdrop and
yeah.
He's trying to get it on the act.
Yeah, trying to get it on the act. That's
So, towards the end of the Palominos, the last few years, it became more of a roots rock kind of club as opposed to a pure country club, because a lot of the country acts were going to either they were playing the Universal Amphitheater or they were playing the Crazy Horse out in Orange County. So the Palomino became like a great place for everybody from me to Joe Ely to Lucinda Williams to people like Albert King and Johnny Johnson and acts kind of like that. And Ronnie, of course, had the barn dance every Tuesday, and it was a great place for musicians to come and meet and mingle. And if you were looking for a bass player, you could go to the Palomino and leave with a bass player, or leave with a lead guitar player, find whatever you were looking for, whether it was musicians or love or whatever you were looking for, you could find it at the Palomino.
It was a good time, right?
Well, it was a good time, and it had a lot of tradition. To play at the Palomino, and they had a door off to the left called the Marty Robbins door, where Marty Robbins, I don't remember the exact story, I'm sure somebody does, but to play on the same stage where, people like Marty Robbins, Jerry Lee Lewis, George Jones, Buck Owens, people like that had played was, it was great to have a tradition, especially in Los Angeles, which has a great country music tradition, but, most people don't know it, and two, most of the clubs where everybody play, hey, shut up! We're trying to do an interview. Sure, that'll last about a minute. Anyway, it was great to play on a stage where all those people had played, and that it tended to make you play better.
Who are the cast who were playing there, like the Killer, Jerry Lee?
Well, in the old days, I mean, everybody played there, from Waylon to Jerry Reed to, I believe Bob Wills even played there at one time, or one time or another. Fair and Young played there, Webb Pierce played there, everybody played there. All the Bakersfield guys would come down and play. The LA guys would come down, that would play there. It was a great tradition, and when it closed, I was always kind of hoping that somebody would buy it and turn it into like the LA equivalent of Antone's, because Austin has Antone's, which is like a great funky club, and it would have been great if LA had its funky club, And the another sad thing was a great real club died when the Palomino died, And then they open up, they build like these monstrosity themed, nightclubs that are supposed to be real clubs, and they're not real clubs. And people can't interact. Musicians can't, network with each other. They can't hang out. It's all showbiz. And so, that to me was the real great tragedy of losing the Palomino, was the tradition, the feeling of community, that kind of thing.
I guess there'll never be another pal like that. Never be another place like that.
No, well, there might be another pal in the sense of, another generation has its own club or something. But as far as a club that was a living link from what, say, I do or Lucinda Williams does or Rosie Flores does or Kathy Robertson does, it's a living link back to, Jerry Lee and Buck Owens and Bob Wills. No, that ain't going to happen here anymore.
Okay, that's great, David. That's what the song Marie, man. What inspired that? Did you have a girlfriend named Marie?
No, it fit the rhyme scheme.
Yeah,
Strictly nuts and bolts.
that's not going on there.
Yeah. Well, I wrote a classic. I wrote a bar band classic.
Oh, I love that song.
Thanks.
Oh, gosh.
That's right, bro. Thank you.
I took a good picture of you and
Boy, we got them out.
the history of the barn dance and how it got started and when the year you went to Palomino and,
Right time.
Right, okay. Well, I was playing at this place every week called Little Nashville Club. It was out in North Hollywood. It was actually right around the corner from the Palomino. And I played there every week, and like James Hetfield was in the band, and a lot of times Al Perkins, who's kind of like a great legendary steel player. He doesn't live there anymore. But so we were playing there like every week, and just because a lot of the people I had in the band, like James Hetfield, like people like Rosie Flores were showing up, and we get like really cool people to come down. Well, Johnny Whitehall in the club, they weren't doing very well there, and he worked out this deal with KCSN, the Cal State Northridge station, that was doing like traditional country music at the time. Like it was all hardcore hillbilly music and roots music, rockabilly and stuff like that. They worked out a deal with them where they would come down and tape an hour live over KCSN with Johnny and his house band, and Johnny played bass himself, and they'd get guest stuff out of the audience. Well, it kind of didn't work very well for them because there was like 10 people there, and you'd just get anybody up that wanted to get up, and it wasn't a professional thing. And the band was like, they do like Kenny Rogers songs or something, and it was just a kind of a older people's bar and stuff like that. Well, I was doing this other thing on the other nights of the week, and we were doing really well, and I was kind of co-hosting some shows for Paul Bowman on K-Fox once in a while and stuff like that when Paul wasn't there. And so Johnny knew about that, and we were doing pretty well, on our nights. And Johnny said, well, they did a couple of shows on KCSN, they call it the Barn Dance, and he said, well, why don't you host one of these? Just you try one. So I did, and on Tuesday night, and we had a line down the street to get in. I had Dave Alvin and Rosie and James Hetfield and Ray Camp, Billy Swan, those people were on, and they'd never seen anything like it. And I mean, again, it was like old people that worked in a place, like really old people that they thought they were being invaded by Martians. When we showed up in there, we had like in those days you had people with mohawks and stuff, and the rockabilly kids all showed. So we did it there for a couple months. We were live on KCSN kind of thing. And then Billy Thomas was right around the corner at the Palomino at the time. He kept coming over, and they weren't doing anything on Tuesday nights. So he kept on me to like move over there, and I said, well, I'll talk to you about it. And I said, I'd love to, do it at the Palomino. And
never mind. Thank you, man.
I wanted to maintain the free admission thing, and that was like a catch. Like the Palomino, Billy didn't want to do that. He wanted to charge admission. And I always wanted to keep it free because I thought this is underdog music, and nobody was really promoting this kind of stuff. It's alternative country, traditional hillbilly. I mean, at the time, Lee Greenwood was on country radio, and Marie Osmond, and Eddie Rabbitt, and Kenny Rogers, and that whole thing. And we were doing like this, promote this whole other thing. So I thought, well, the way to really get people to know about this stuff is to make it easy for them to get to hear it and see it, and the people who do it, so have free admission. So always maintain. So I told Billy that. I said, well, you're not going to have, if you want to charge money, I'm not going to move over. I said, Little Nashville's thrilled. I mean, they've never seen anything, crowds like this, On a Tuesday night, they're doing $2,000 at the bar. But so Billy said, okay. So we moved it over there after like 3 months or something like that at the Little Nashville. We moved to Palomino. I remember our first night over there, Jerry Lee Lewis was sitting at the bar. He kept saying he was going to get up. I got to get drunker first. I got to get drunker first. And then he got really drunk. And he wound up walking out just totally drunk with a girl on each arm. So he never got up to sing. But he was there for about 2 hours and stuff. And we had like Lucinda Williams was on that night, I remember, and George Highfill. I think maybe Big J McNeely was on that night. And we stayed there for 7.5 years. And had just some incredible nights. I mean, so many lines down the street, kind of nice. We did a tribute to Hank Williams night. We did, because we always, one of the things we do is tributes to like a lot of the pioneers and legends that have died. So like Hank Williams, Buddy Holly, Patsy Cline, Graham Parsons, Ricky Nelson, all these different people. And so we like had a tribute to Hank Williams. Like Bruce Springsteen with his 5-month pregnant wife, Patty, showed up, you know, and they were there that night. Lucinda and Rosie were all in the show, and Big Sandy, Dave Alvin were all on that night. It was incredible. Line down the street till midnight to get in. And I remember a night when Lucinda just won a Grammy for writing Passionate Kisses, you know, that Mary Chapin Carpenter did. A week later, we had her on the show, you know. After a week after she won a Grammy, again, a line till midnight to get in. Just so many of those kind of nights, you know, and stuff like that we had over there on anniversary shows that were incredible. At night, Marty Stewart came down. He sat in with us at the end of the night for an hour and a half. He did some songs, back everybody else up. You know, Marty, country people like Travis Tritt came down and played, and Mark Colley, and Brian Sutcher used to do some of our shows there. He'd either show up just to play, or we had him on like some Gene Vincent, Eddie Cochran tributes and stuff like that. So, yeah, Screaming Jay Hawkins and, you know, people from all music. So that's how we wound up at Palomino. But they started, you know, Billy had some problems with the people that were anything past 2 weeks from now.
Wow, Ron, you had the right life.
It's because you're here, Elvis.
Yeah.
I'm here for you.
Yeah. Right.
So anyway, we stayed there 7.5 years, and Billy had some problems with the agency that was booking the place out of San Diego and stuff, and he lost them. And they were booking like really cool acts like Delbert McClinton and Joe Ely, and they were really packing the place. And plus he had this thing with KNEC, which was a heavy metal station at the time. Because one of the problems when Billy was running the Palomino was like a lot of country people say, oh, the Palomino went downhill and Billy turned it into a rock club. You know, the problem was that, a couple problems, was that the fire department cut the capacity in half. He couldn't use the patio anymore or anything. And mix that with the fact that a lot of the country acts have become so expensive, you know, because they're all like big stars now. And Billy would have had to charge a fortune with the diminished capacity to be able to pay the acts and stuff. And he booked like Tanya Tucker, I think it was, and there's people in there, and even Buck Owens he booked in there. We did a little mini barn dance open for him. He lost money on it. He said, well, I booked it because I thought it'd be good for the club to have Buck Owens in here, but he lost money on the night, and he charged $15 at the time to get in, and people were complaining about that. This was about 1990 or something. And but that was an incredible night too. I mean, we did a opening show, and like Brooke Shields was there, and Del Shannon just a few months before he shot himself was like right at the front table. People you wouldn't even expect, like Brooke Shields, to be at a Buck Owens show. But Billy said, it's like country people say, well, you didn't book country anymore. Like, Billy, I book country 7 nights a week, but people aren't coming because I'm losing money on it. And he books heavy metal and hard rock. Part of the problem that he was having at the time was he was in trouble with the fire department for overcrowding in the place. People were thinking people aren't going to the Palomino anymore, or they weren't going to the country shows anymore. But he had lines down the street past midnight to get in on the hard rock nights. You know, and that was the problem he was having. He was getting cited all the time, and one more time, and they were going to take away his license. So he was having all kind of problems that way, and he just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And so like Sherry, that was Tommy's, the original owner's widow, took back over, and she had these ideas of bringing it back to the way it used to be 30 years ago, and we're going to bring it back to all country now, and so that. So everybody said, okay, well, this is great. She's got, you know, bring the club back to the glory days and stuff. And she meant well, but just because you were the wife of the original owner doesn't mean you had the knowledge of the original owner, and she didn't. You know, I mean, she didn't know anything about running the club. She knew who Garth Brooks was. Well, Sherry, Garth Brooks isn't going to play her. You know, and she didn't. The Delbert McClintons and the Commander Codys and the Joe Elys and the Jimmy Dale Gilmores and other people that were playing the place that she should have had there, she never heard of. You know, and she had nobody to book the place except her. and her construction worker boyfriend, you know. And so I kind of hung in there on the Tuesday. They were like bringing in 3 people on a Friday night kind of thing. And I saw what was happening. It was just going downhill so bad. And a few clubs like the Alligator Lounge wanted a barn dance, and Eddie had been wanting it for a couple of years and stuff. And so people like Dave Alvin and Alan Arman said, go to Sugar Shack. You know, he said, Eddie's great. And so, and they were like, this was like a really hopping club, you know, back like 5 years ago. And so Junior Brown did all this, Kelly Willis stuff. I think she's going to be here next month. They were all playing here. Dave all the time, Dave Alvin and stuff, Big Sandy. So I told Sherry, I said, Sherry, you know, they want it over there. It's a hot place. It's a legendary intersection. You know, this place isn't, I'm just going to leave, you know. And I remember last night that we did the barn dance there. I mean, I just embraced Sherry and I cried because I remember being a kid living back east, just a little kid reading Billboard magazine and saying Jerry Lee Lewis at the Palomino, Linda Ronstadt, you know, Rick Nelson at the Palomino, saying, well, I wish I could see that place. I just wanted to see the place. And the second day I was in town in June of '76, I drove from where I live in West LA out there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And the first thing I thought was, when I drove by, I saw Palomino, I saw where and I walked in, and there was just like a couple of people at the bar, and I just walked around and looked at that stage and just thought, wow, of all the people, and looked at all the pictures and stuff. So it was an honor for 7.5 years to be able to do that thing there every single week and stuff, you know, but I just saw the writing on the wall, you know. And so we moved over here, and they lasted about 2 more months and just closed up, and, you know, it's been closed since, and now it's like some other, banquet room or something. They're turning it into something now. And we've been here for almost going on 5 years, I guess, now that we've been here, yeah. So, but we had great nights there, but it was tough, you know, because, again, it was kind of a club on the decline while we were there. And I remember the first times trying to get gigs from Tommy over there. Oh, man, I was 22. And I call him on a Monday morning. You got to come up here, Ron. Can't talk to you on the phone. Come up here tonight. I get there at 8 o'clock, 1:30 he's leaving. So, Tommy, you're going to see me. I don't have anything for you. Call me Friday morning. Call him Friday morning. I can't do anything. I got to come up here. Come up here tonight. I go up there, and 8 o'clock, 1:30 he's leaving. I said, Tommy, you're going to see me. I don't have anything for you. Call me Monday morning. Call him Monday morning. Got to come up here. This went on for 6 months. Tommy put me through that. And then, after 6 months, he booked me a date. A couple of days after he booked me a date, he calls me. I got to cancel because Doug Kershaw wants to come in that night. Then I had to go through the whole thing all over again. So why can't I open for Doug Kershaw? Well, I'll work something else out for you. So, but he finally got a date, which was a real honor. And I remember the first night was the night after my birthday. So that was like a really nice birthday present and stuff. And to see, you know, to be 22 and 7, to see, back then they were running ads in the LA Times calendar and stuff like that. To see your name in the Palomino listings was like a real thrill for me at the time, you know. So,
What year was that?
Huh?
What year?
It was about 77, something like that, yeah. And I remember the first thing was, I had done a show in '77. It was Rick Nelson television special in Monroe, Louisiana, and they were honoring his 20th anniversary in music. And the producers of the show, it's called Rick Nelson at the Fair, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi State Fair. It was right on the border. And they had me write a song commemorating his 20th anniversary in music. So I did, and they had me go down there, and they had me in the Rick's hotel room singing a song for all these girls and stuff. And Elvis had just died like a month before. And the Colonel was like advising Rick, and all the Elvis's people at the time, right down to souvenir people, all came to work for Rick Nelson at the time. So it was like this whole, the Sweet Inspirations, they were on the show. They were like Elvis's background singers. And so I did that and stuff. So I that was the only thing I had to use when I went to Tommy, because Rick used to play there. I said, well, I just did this Rick Nelson television special. But back in those days, cable hadn't come in yet. So if one of the free networks wasn't going to pick it up, it just didn't get on. And so at the time, nobody picked it up, you know. So they never got used. But I used to use that as kind of my selling point at the time, being 22 and being new in town and stuff like that. Yeah. And I actually got a copy of it, though, years later. Somebody had a copy of me singing it. So I look at that now, and I was like 22, and it looked like I was 12. And his little voice like that while I was singing it. So I played it for James Inveld, and he laughed. He goes, man, he's like 10 years old. So, but it was all thrill and stuff like that. So, are they done?
Many a sold-out show, locked up in her own world. I can almost hear her cry.